Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, where myself, Matt, and my co-host Tyler
Hello.
provide completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. But today is our Halloween-themed episode of Film Frauds, in which we will be doing another Search for Modern Classic series. This time covering 2017's Get Out, a indie horror film hit that elevated the
Yeah.
careers of the director, the actor, and the production company that made it. But before we get into talking about Get Out, we're going to first discuss Halloween movies in general, specifically, I guess our feelings on horror movies, what horror movies we saw during the month of October, and also the other Halloween episode that we did for Film Frauds. So Tyler, how do you want to kick off this general horror movie discussion?
Yeah, I'm kind of just curious, honestly. Like I know you watch less horror movies than I. The type of horror movies that you watch and consume are a little bit different than I do. I know you're not a big fan of like the Conjuring, Insidious style horror movies that are
Mm.
like more like at times cheap horror, loud jump scares, creepy imagery, but more created by like a slow environment build and then usually culminating in a sound, a scare, something that startles you rather than like unsettles you. And that's not the type of movies you watch, and that's more of the horror movies that I consume. I was more curious about like your relationship with horror movies growing up because I feel like mine was standard, pretty typical for like
Mm.
young people getting into movies. And I was curious about yours.
So I didn't like horror movies growing up. In fact, like just in general, I don't love Halloween. Like even in real life, like I
Yeah.
think Halloween is probably like my least favorite holiday in the US. It's funny when I went to Ireland, I was like, it was in October. I'm like, man, thank God I don't have to worry about Halloween this year. And Ireland is where the Halloween tradition was born, and I didn't know that.
Really?
And I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
oh, so I looked like a fool. Um, but as I got older, I think in high school, I started to watch scary movies or horror movies. And even then, I can't say that even now, like I hated it when we saw it in theaters. I was miserable.
Yeah.
I have not seen any of the Conjuring movies, nor do I have any interest. Well, I saw Annabelle with you. Um,
Man, I really drag you to these movies, huh?
yeah,
Don't
even
you?
dragged me to a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
awful
the
movies.
it experience was terrible because it was September when we were in college and it was 95 degrees in a completely sold out theater. It was hot and it's two and a
Yes,
half
and the
hours
movie
long.
was 2.5 hours long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I think my preference is usually like dramas that have horror themes to them more
Yeah.
than like straight up horror movies. Like Silence of the Lambs is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I would
Yeah.
consider that to be like a tentative horror movie. It's
Yeah.
a drama, but it has horror elements. And um like the movies we did for the last podcast a couple of years ago
Yeah.
with Mark, like what movie did I recommend?
Raw.
The Raw, yeah,
Yeah.
like Raw. It's like a horror movie, but like the horror has like there are like analogies to it where it has meaning
Yeah.
besides just like you're waiting for the jump scare to happen,
Yeah.
and it's like a roller coaster ride. um so I like movies that have a point besides being a horror movie where the
Yeah.
horror is like incorporated into it, and those can be some of my favorite movies as well, like Nosferatu the Vampire, which we
Yeah.
also watch. Slower movie,
Yeah.
but I appreciated it more for its like directing and its acting and its atmosphere more than like it just being a horror movie.
Did
And
you
so I
like
think I
did you remember what did we watch The Exorcist in that episode?
yeah, yes,
Did you
yes.
like The Exorcist? I can't
Yeah, I
remember.
really enjoyed The Exorcist. Again,
Okay.
like I like it's gonna sound stupid, but like well-made horror movies, I guess, like psychological
Yeah.
and horror movies that have like a point besides just being locked in a movie theater waiting for the jump scare to happen.
Hmm.
And it's like I don't really like I've had the option to watch like what's it called, like The Black Phone with Ethan Hawke and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah,
And I never
yeah.
watched it. Like it's just one of those things where it's like I don't go out of my way to watch horror movies unless like it's like loved. Like for example, The Witch by Robert Eggers, not
Yeah.
Roger Ebert, Robert Eggers, I think is like one of my favorite horror movies of all time because it's slow. I like horror movies where nothing happens. It's an hour and a half long, nothing happens for an hour and
Oh my
20, and the
God.
last 10 minutes, crap hits the fan.
What
You
is
know?
that one movie that we watched? Something called like something's daughter, the Black Coat's daughter.
The Black Coat, yeah, I love the
Yeah,
Black Coat's daughter.
that
And you
one
don't
is what
like it.
I'm not a big fan of it. No, and that's one of I remember you're like, you have to watch this. This is a movie you have to check out. And I remember watching it being like, man, I that's actually a movie I kind of want to revisit because I feel like I probably was unfairly
That movie
maligned
like
it.
disturbed me. Like there were like I remember walking in my house after in the kitchen and like a paper fell off the counter and I heard it hit the ground. I jumped. Like that's how much it impacted me.
See, that's good though, because that's a movie that like I think I don't know, is that like a popular like online horror movie now? I don't see
I
anybody ever
think
talking
Red
about
Letter
it.
Media Jay was like, this movie's like horrifying, and so that's
Really?
why I went out to see it.
Okay.
But last year, I went. I'm just going to my letterbox to find like my letterbox stuff from last year because there was a movie that I saw that was pretty good.
Like The Wailing. I remember you
The
like The
Saint
Wailing.
Maud.
Saint Maud. Oh, I heard about Saint Maud.
Yes,
Yeah.
Saint Maud was disturbing. Good. Or, again, horror indie movie where
Yeah.
nothing really happens the last like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then The Haunting of Hill House I watched last year for the
Oh
first
yeah.
time, and it's character driven, like,
Hmm.
and it's fantastic. It's so good. So that's what I lean towards in horror movies. I'm a little. I try not to be super um like um like hoity-toity in my taste for movies. Like I do
Yeah.
like dumb movies. Like I love Dread. I can watch Dread every year, and I think
But
it's
Dread isn't like
amazing.
a dumb movie, I don't think. Like that's not a
No, but
dumb
like
movie.
it's not like
It's
hoity-toity either.
yeah.
Like, but with horror movies, like I do need that like step above. I need a little class to my horror to enjoy it. Is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, basically. What about you, Tyler? What are your horror movie
So I
feels?
think so growing up, I'm part of a big family. So like a lot of times like people would fall asleep like watching TV. And when you're watching cable, like late night cable, random movies would just come on, like random like B movies, pretty bad movies back in like mid 2000s. And it'd be a lot of like scary movies. It'd be these like kind of like low budget, like sci-fi, like the Goblin versus the Shark or something like that, or
Yeah.
those type
Oh,
of movies.
Asylum films.
Yeah, like those
Yeah.
type of movies. And like I used to fall asleep to those type of movies. Is like just put on like a bad horror movie and it used to like freak me out, but I used to really kind of like weirdly find comfort in that. And then when I hit like you hit that age where you're like going to the movie theaters, like you go to the mall and kind of go to the movie theaters, like those type of era of like Sinister, Insidious, and The Woman in Black were
Never saw
three.
any of those movies.
Yeah, there are three like very pivotal movies in my life because I remember so distinctly going to the movie theaters, seeing these in theaters, being legitimately freaked out in theaters because I was like young. I mean, these were, I think, Women in Black and Insidious were 2010. So I was young. I was like 13 seeing these. And I remember being really freaked out. And I remember like pop horror being like a pretty big key thing in my life is like these bigger, louder scares. Like I'd go to the theaters and see it. I mean, I'm someone who I do enjoy the It movie, the first one, less so maybe the second, but I definitely have more of a relationship with them. I found myself though recently in the last few years, like actively not really seeking them out. Genres that I just didn't really find much interest in. And the last few weeks, I've been watching a lot more horror movies and I've been really like liking them, like really enjoying what I've been getting out of them for the most part. There's some ones that when we talk about what we saw this month, I have a couple where I'm just like, that sucked. But it still was like an enjoyable, like I have like things that were miserable. Like it was just like an experience. And horror movies to me are always really interesting because they're just so primal. Like if they are effective, they really leave a lasting impact. I'd say more so than a lot of other genres outside of like a deep emotional sadness or like an existential crisis you get out of watching some movies. But like the very visceral feelings of like unsettled and like uncomfortable in your own environment that you live in on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis is something that I find really interesting and I've been enjoying more. I've always had a relationship with them. They're like a key part in my movie going experience. I can't talk about growing up and going to the movies without the showing a lot of people that I know Insidious or seeing Sinister in theaters and some of the scares like legitimately still being like, holy crap, or the Conjuring 2 I saw in theaters has one of the more effective scares I remember in a movie theater. I rewatched that movie and it's not as scary. And now I'm just big, brave, and tough now. I'm just a strong, tough guy. But they're so interesting. Like I just like watching them. And honestly, the more I get into them, the more I'm kind of intrigued by what they have to offer or what they say, what they can do, everything like that.
Hmm. Um, what do you say is the best horror movie you've seen in October this year?
This year so far. Okay, so you watched less than I do. I kind of
Yes.
went a little. So I recently kind of in preparation for October, I started at the end of September and I watched No One Will Save You, this like alien invasion mild horror movie. It was really good. I really liked it. I then watched Russell Crowe just have fun in a movie called The Pope's Exorcist. It's pretty cliche. Didn't really like it.
Keep in mind that I had asked Tyler to watch Night of the Living Dead for this podcast. So when he lists off 40 movies and then told me right before
You
that he didn't have time to watch it, let's just keep that in
you
mind
asked
as this
me that.
podcast goes
That's
along.
that's fair. I have to take criticism. And then I went and saw The Exorcist Believer in theaters, which was maybe one of the worst movie going experiences I've had in a long
Yeah,
time.
I heard your thoughts on that. It was seems like
Yeah,
something I would absolutely abhor to be in.
yeah, it's a pretty boring movie, but not only boring, it seems to actively dislike the material service. It serves no real purpose. It doesn't feel like a real movie, and it doesn't really leave on any like good note. It kind of just ends. There's a bold decision at the end, which I kind of liked, but don't really give a shit. That made me want to rewatch The Exorcist, which I did, and it was phenomenal. I checked out this 2023 movie I saw a trailer of, called It Lives Inside. It was interesting because it was based on more like Indian American like culture. The demon deity is based on like Indian culture and history. And I was like, oh, that could be some interesting like sociocultural like discussion, because I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I love horror movies that have something to say. Who doesn't? Good movies are good movies. And I was like, oh, there could be something to say about like culture and losing culture. And the movie kind of starts off with that, and then it becomes like rote, boring, generic pop bullshit with a really corny, goofy ending, with a really corny, goofy like boss, with kind of like a morbid downer ending, which I
A
honestly
boss
respected.
battle?
Yeah, but it's like a guy in a rubber suit. It reminded me of like the old Godzilla movies where you're watching it
Oh,
and you're like, what is this? It's respectable. It just kind of fails on all fronts. I was not a big fan of it. I actively thought it was pretty terrible. Then I watched the original Halloween, which has only had a lasting impact on me. It's great. It's only gone up in my mind. I watched 2023's Talk to Me. I found that I know a lot of people really love it. I found it was pretty solid. I get when I talk about like it being a lot of like subtext. There's a really great sequence where it's all an allusion to like drug addiction, drug consumption. I thought was pretty good. I thought it was fine. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I think it's probably a little overhyped in my mind. I don't know if Shutter Island is a horror movie, but that was really good. I watched Barbarian, which
oh yeah.
fucking is awesome. I think you're a little bit lower on it than I am, uh, out of memory, but it was maybe one of the more impressive movies I've seen in a little bit in terms of pure, audacious, like bold filmmaking, style changes, narrative changes. It was really, really impressive. I left like fully immersed and engaged, and like very impressed, like audibly reacting to the movie in my own home by myself. Kind of sad. I watched Halloween 2, the sequel to John Carpenter's movie. It's fine. I know a lot of people really like it, but it makes for a good double feature. It tries to emulate Carpenter's style, pretty not really as effective, and it kind of loses a lot of that initial fear of like the random unknown penetrating the normal life, and becomes more of the like super villain kind of like supernatural entity kind of thing. I watched then David Gordon Green's 2018 Halloween because I was very curious, and it's actually pretty good. It's honestly kind of effective. There's a couple sequences. I'm going to mildly spoil it, but there's a long take kind of harkening back to Carpenter's long takes in it, where Michael Myers just goes into a random person's house and like beats a woman to death with a hammer. And it feels very like violent and real and scary. And then he goes into another person's house and kills him with a knife. And it's like, holy shit. He kills a kid in the movie, and you're like, wow. And that's like, it's effective. It's like a random thing can just come and kill you is scarier than most other things. And then I think there's one more. I watched the original Friday the 13th. It's fine. It's a Halloween ripoff, and it's fine. I didn't really think it structurally worked a lot. I understand the classic nature of it, but these movies had never been for me. I hated the remake. I saw the remake when I was too young. It was very graphic. When I was younger, I was like 9, I think, watching this very scary movie with a lot of like boobs and sex and very brutal murders. So, horror movies. I watched a lot of them. The best one I saw was Barbarian. I mean, The Exorcist is The Exorcist. Halloween is Halloween. But if we're talking like new, true movies, it was Barbarian. Barbarian stands out above the rest. And Talk to Me was impressive. It Lives
Hmm.
Inside sucks. Exorcist Believer sucked. What
I
about you,
still
Matt?
remember, like, I watched Barbarian like a year ago, and I still remember, like, I guess a testament to the movies, but I still remember a lot of what happened,
Yeah.
and like my emotions trying to figure out where exactly the movie was going.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder on a rewatch if it'll be higher on from me.
Well,
I
do
just
you,
remember liking the psychological elements because again, like as I said earlier, I like the psychological aspect of horror. I
yeah,
like the psychological aspects like in the first half of the movie
yeah,
quite a lot. And then like the movie does campy really well, but it
yeah.
just feels like a downgrade for me personally,
Okay.
just because I really liked the psychological elements. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, like who is this guy kind of
Yeah,
thing? Is he like a
exactly.
weirdo? Yeah. Well,
Yes,
I'm
but
curious, as someone who, again, you don't like these like louder scare spoilers for Barbarian, real quick. Spoilers, skip like a minute to pass. Um, when the reveal, they're like in the little tunnel, and Keith is like, "There's something down here," and then the fucking thing comes out and bashes him to death. What
yeah.
was your reaction? Where you're like, or like,
No,
uh,
I mean like I wasn't disappointed, I don't think.
okay,
Because then like the movie immediately jump cuts to the
that,
Justin Long
yeah,
story. Cause then you're like, because I remember I was like, whoa, okay, this is a interesting tonal shift.
yeah,
Um, but not I was never disappointed, but I just felt like I just enjoyed the slower
mhm,
like trying to figure each other out sort
yeah,
of elements to it more than like creepy lady living
okay,
living in the house and she
okay,
is like really strong for some reason. Um, but no, it's still really good. I think it does like campy horror really well. And even
yeah,
as someone who's not like a fan of campy horror, the fact that I still enjoyed it is like a testament to how good it is like
yeah,
probably the best thing I can say.
okay,
All right, movies that I watch
yeah.
in October, and October's not over yet. I'm probably gonna watch a couple more just to
Same here.
clarify. But
Yeah. We can recap next episode. Be like, hey,
yeah,
we finished off.
I watched Black Death, the Sean Bean medieval movie.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
So this movie has Sean Bean and Carice Van Houten, who is
Okay.
Melisandre in
Oh,
Game of
okay.
Thrones, and she plays a witch woman who wears red in this movie. Eddie Redmayne's in it as well. It's a decent movie.
Okay.
It looks pretty good for its budget. It just takes a long time to do anything interesting, and its themes of religion and
Mm,
believing and non-believing are so scrambled that it's
mm,
hard to make sense of it. I rewatched Ravenous, which is like the indie Quebec zombie film.
yeah.
It's so I'm gonna be a hypocrite for a second because I say I like indie movies where nothing happens the last like 30
Mm.
minutes and then it's like chaos.
Yeah.
This movie I thought was really boring and it has interesting things it does at the end, but it feels like it's trying to like put duct tape over what is like a really
Okay.
uninteresting plot. It's like, oh, look at this cool imagery we're gonna put right at the end. It's like I wish this was in the movie earlier. Like it's just a generic movie up until like the last couple minutes, and then
Okay.
like there's some crazy stuff that happens, but it just doesn't redeem what I had to build up to wait for.
Okay.
Whereas like something like The Witch, where it's like when you rewatch it, you can like track the disintegration of this family and you
Yeah.
love it. Here it's like they're walking in the woods and it's like indie and it's like but it's not good indie. It's like we're trying to say something but we're not saying anything kind of
Yeah.
indie. That's basically how I would describe the
We're just
Ravenous.
walking in the woods and nothing happening and
Yes,
bad indie.
basically. I rewatched Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were Rabbit.
What made you watch that? I saw that on Letterboxd. I was like, I don't know what
It
he's
was
doing
like a Sunday
anymore.
morning, and I'm like, I just want to watch this, whatever. It is funny. It's very British, very dry humor. Ralph Fiennes arguably gives the greatest performance of all time, and I will stay true to that as the incompetent villain. He's like so good in it, and also like Claymations is fun. Like I just like
Yeah.
appreciate the art style. It's a very good movie, and
Yeah.
I think it's a good like movie if you have kids to watch, or if you're like me and you don't love like the Halloween aesthetic. It's like it's like a nice movie to watch. Night of the Living Dead. Um,
Sorry.
it's I'm gonna draw comparisons to that and Get Out.
Yeah.
Like kind of I didn't expect it, but like there are a lot of comparisons I would say
Mm.
between Night of the Living Dead and Get Out. It's too bad that you didn't watch it because then we could both talk about it.
You know,
But
I clearly had to watch all the other ones, which just as
yeah,
important. That's the
yes,
one
of
you
course.
finally asked me. You're like, please just watch this, and I went okay, and then didn't.
That was a rewatch for me. And then I watched last night Trick or
I
Treat.
saw your letterbox review. Yeah, Trick or Treat. Yeah.
And it's like it's a movie that I respect, but again, as someone who doesn't love Halloween aesthetic, as someone who doesn't like find campy horror to be all that engaging, it didn't I didn't love it. I
Not a
liked
fan.
parts of it. It did make me laugh a couple times. I
Mm.
will say that, but it's like even when a movie like goes out of its way to tell you like, oh, we're torturing a bad person in this part, I just can't get engaged. Like I just doesn't like I don't like revel in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything for me. I like being emotionally attached to my characters, And even though this movie does have some fun twists to it, so I think if you do love horror, my friend Tim recommended it to me.
Mm.
So shout out to Tim, if you're listening, which he might be. He said he would. But I think it's for someone who likes horror movies and as
Yeah.
someone who's very picky with his horror movies. I probably will not be rushing to rewatch it, but I do appreciate it for its filmmaking.
Yeah, there's like I mean, definitely like knowing you and knowing your taste. Like what's that South Korean serial killer revenge movie? Something killing the devil or something like that.
I saw
Or
The Devil.
I saw the devil. Like that seems like more up your like not it's not like a horror movie, but if you're talking about like gruesome, violent, like
I mean, like
movies like
Green
that.
Room is one of my favorite movies of the 2010s, and that
Yeah,
is like incredibly gruesome.
yeah, and like scary, like those type of movies, like
Yeah.
those are the type of like horror movies, ones that like leave an impact but aren't. It's weird. Like they're an interesting genre because like is Green Room technically or is like I Saw the Devil like technically horror movies? Like there are elements of it that are legitimately or like this is
Yeah.
very frightening. Like this is more unsettling than most horror movies, and I wonder what type of genre those fall into because some of this stuff is like a very interesting thing to dissect. Is like when we talk about Get Out soon, like is that like a full horror movie or does it fall into like horror satire? Like
Mm.
it's really like an interesting discussion of what is classified as like horror movies because there's a lot of stuff that is unconventionally scary that is more impactful than most of the horror movies we've probably seen recently. I think it's
I
pretty
would agree.
interesting. Yeah, like not to spoil because there is a chance that this episode is out before our another episode, but like content that is scary that isn't meant to be horror, like the ending of The Irishman, which is a weird
Yeah.
thing where you're like sitting in like the horrific
I
reality.
know you end the movie, you're like, I'm gonna get old and die someday.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's like
isn't that kind of
isn't that kind of scary? It's
horrifying?
scary, yeah. And you like what like this is a case of like I ruined my life and now going from there, or like circumstances like worst case scenario circumstance movies. Like it's interesting what classifies as horror and what doesn't. Typically, it feels like there's like a monster, a ghoul, like a ghoul or the demon or something like that. But I don't know, like I find horror to be really compelling, but really interesting, like a really fascinating exploration to it. And I'm glad we could talk about Get Out and arguably
Yes.
the most critically praised, I think universally praised movie of the last 10 years. Like nobody has anything bad to say about this movie. Is there a movie like more? Well, we're kind of spoiling a little bit. 2017, we were in
Yes.
college. Do
Get
you
Out.
remember seeing this movie? Do you remember like your first experience with it? What do you remember from this?
I did not see this movie in theaters.
You didn't.
No, I did not. I saw it at home. It was on
Okay.
HBO and I watched it at home, I think like in the middle of the day or something.
Yeah.
So not the greatest atmosphere, but it's coming at an interesting time because it's directed by Key Peele.
Jordan
Wait,
Peele.
no, his name is Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Keegan Michael Keegan.
Key.
This
Yeah.
is Jordan Peele, who just had the hit Key and Peele TV show, which like when we were in high school and it was coming out, and like everybody
I didn't
knew what
watch
Key
it.
and Peele was.
I never watched it.
I never watched it either, which is why
Yeah.
I didn't see Get Out in theaters because I didn't care.
Mm.
But for the most part, everyone knew what Key and Peele was, even if you didn't watch it like us, like we knew what it was. And like these guys were mega stars.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Jordan Peele breaks off and makes a horror movie,
Yeah.
which is strange because like he's known for his comedy. Even before Key and Peele, he was known for being a stand-up comedian and a comedy writer. And so this movie comes out and no one has any expectations for it, I don't think. Made by the Blumhouse company. And also and then just through sheer word of mouth, it becomes a hit movie.
Yeah.
It skyrockets Jordan Peele's career as a filmmaker. It skyrockets Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah.
Is that how you say
Daniel
his name?
Kaluuya. Daniel Kaluuya.
Daniel
Yeah.
Kaluuya's career, like Keith Stanfield's career, and also makes Blumhouse like a huge horror company. So a lot of great things came from this movie. I
Yeah.
watched it in 2018, I think. Did you see this movie in theaters?
Yeah, I did. That was just definitely like I was just looking up like what it was nominated for and stuff like
Yeah.
that for like nominated stuff like that. It looks like it had 4 or 3. It had 4 nominees and was winner of 1, but we can talk about that after. No, I saw this like it was the exact same thing as you. I didn't watch Key and Peele, but like in college, all of a sudden we're sophomores in college and we're into movies, and all of a sudden you hear like, "Hey, Get Out is like the best movie of the year, and you have to see Get Out." And all of a sudden it's like it has that build up, and that the first trailer comes out, and you're like, "Oh, cool!" Like looks cool, and then
Yeah.
but the reviews are like, "It's the best, it's the best, it's the best," and then you like it comes out and it's huge. Like everybody's seeing it, everybody's talking about it, every online film discourse is talking about it. And I went and saw it in theaters and was like, wow, that's really fucking good. I then have seen it now. Rewatching it for this was the fifth time I've seen this movie
Oh,
because there's a span in the first 2 years after it came out where like every 6 months I would be with different people who would be like, let's watch Get Out again. And I'd be like, okay. And there was definitely a point between like the second and third rewatch where it like, I was like, I'm a little bit lower on it because I was seeing it so much. But by the time I was like a couple years ago, like watching it and stuff like that, I was like, no, this is like an incredible movie. Like this is like a genuinely phenomenal movie. And I'm still on that after now having seen it for a fifth time.
yeah.
It's it holds up. It's arguably, I don't want to spoil our discussion for if it's a modern classic or not, but if there's like a textbook case of a movie that's probably a modern classic in our time, there seems like there's a Get Out, a before Get Out and an after Get Out era with horror movies.
I mean, even if you just look at the commercials for any Blumhouse movie or any Jordan Peele movie, is always Get Out is the first thing.
Yeah.
The makers of Get Out, the minds of Get Out, the actors in Get Out.
Yeah.
5-6 years later, it still is like a marketing influence.
Yeah.
So this is my first time ever rewatching the movie. I watched it one time before, and probably the greatest compliment, and we're gonna go into full spoilers for this movie once
full
we're
spoilers.
Yeah. You've probably have seen this movie. I mean, most people have seen this movie. And so the greatest thing I probably say about it is how much it makes sense in a satisfying way on a rewatch. It's like a prime example of how to interweave social commentary into a movie. It's not subtle and by any means, but it has likable characters. It has, and also the twist of like the white family meeting the black boyfriend is like insane. And not exactly what you would expect. And so like it sort of is elevated by the craziness of the plot, which on a rewatch, even though it's absurd, it does make sense relative to this world that they've created.
Yeah.
And so like that is probably the greatest thing I can say about this movie is like on a rewatch, like it is still just as engaging. And it's basically spearheaded by a very subtly great performance by Daniel Kaluuya. He's
not
so
subtly great.
likable.
It's really great. He's like phenomenal in this. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, there's no like monologue scene or anything with him. He's just like a guy, but he plays a guy really, really well.
Yeah. He plays a guy who's in a weird situation. Like when there's that moment when he realized, look, he's Steinfeld's character, the guy who's kidnapped at the beginning, Dre. When he's talking to, oh my God, his friend, the TSA agent.
I know the guy's name is Lil Ray Howery.
Yeah. I can't remember the character's name. I'm having a brain fart there. But when he's like, oh, that's like Andre something. He's like, he's like, the reaction he had feels so real and genuine. Like a real person is doing these things. Yeah. Rod. Thank you. Yeah. You're right. Like it's rewatching this movie. One, it's a movie that has 100% benefited on multiple rewatches because there's a lot of little things. If you know the twist, if you know the plot, you know where it goes, the little things, the little interactions, the moments that eventually escalate to you. They're not subtle anymore. It's clear something weird going on, but the little small buildup, the key things, the fact that the family's grandfather lost to Jesse Owens, and there's probably like the catalyst for the desire to like take over black people's bodies comes probably originated from his loss of Jesse Owens. Like there's all this kind of stuff that slowly builds into the reveal, and then it pays off because the first time the mom touches the tea glass when they're talking about like smoking is you're like, oh, there's something there. It's a movie that benefits. And it's so it just feels more rewarding the more times you watch it, which is just like it's hard to argue against this being like a very key important movie in our 21st century film discourse. It's so important to like online media and talking about horror movies and this like resurrection of it. And Jordan Peele movies are event movies now. Jordan Peele makes a movie and we're like, okay, like out of curiosity, do you like Us and Nope?
I've not seen Us.
You haven't seen Us yet?
No.
Okay. I'm very curious to see what you think about it. It's very odd.
Okay.
But it's very good, I think.
Would you say Get Out is his best movie in your
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I think they're each going for different things, but in terms of like complete movies, Get Out's probably the best one. Nope is really fascinating because Nope has maybe one of the most unsettling scenes I've seen in a movie in a long time. The one where they all get sucked into the alien spaceship and they're like,
That and like the chimpanzee freak out are like
yeah,
two really impactful scenes.
yeah. You don't
But
like
it's
Nope
like
though.
I feel like the Steven Yeun character arc is like the most interesting. And then
Yeah.
once he's gone, the movie drops in interest for me.
Okay, because that's something that's really interesting. Because Nope is a movie I want to rewatch. But honestly, if I rewatch it, I might just fast forward to the where they're all sucked up because that like legitimately unnerves me. Like that's like it
Yeah.
freaks me out. Like it gives me heebie-jeebies, makes me uncomfortable kind of thing. I saw Us in theaters. I've seen Nope in theaters. I've seen all of his movie in theaters. Olive stands by that his Twilight Zone TV show is phenomenal. I have not seen it. I
I've heard it
have.
was awful, but
I
okay.
heard
Like
that
I've not
too.
seen it, so I can't speak on it.
Yeah, but she stands by it. She's like, it's great. It's awesome. Like you have to watch it. And I don't have any relationship to the original Twilight Zone, so I can't say. But you saw this in theaters for the first time when you, or not in theaters, when you watched it for the first time. It ended. What were your thoughts back in? When did you see this for the first time? Do you know what year?
2018 probably.
What'd you think of it after
Um,
the first time?
yeah, so I was like in my early 20s and I was like, my God, it was a really, really great.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like really satisfying movies where you
Mhm.
finish it. It definitely it's one of those movies where it builds every scene, like it builds in tension basically. And then I was ultimately like, I'm gonna watch any movie this guy makes,
Yeah.
probably coming out of it. And it's just like a movie that it got really hyped up, but it lived up to the hype, I would
Yeah.
say. It's like the
Yeah.
best thing I can say about it. And then on this rewatch, like so Jordan Peele as a filmmaker is really interesting because he's not like flashy by any means. Like I don't think like if I watch besides like a couple like trippy moments, like if I feel like if I couldn't tell who he is as a filmmaker just from like watching like the way the camera moves or something.
Yeah. I get that.
But I think rewatching this, I really love the opening scenes where he is going into the family's house and they do a
Mhm.
great job establishing like the dimensions of the house, like the
Yeah.
outside, like things like that are just so simple, but I just like I appreciated really well. He's very good at slow building, very good
Yeah.
at telling like visual stories without being like obvious about it.
Hmm.
Um, and then like as you know later on in his filmmaking, like Nope is a much better directed, more flashy directed movie.
Yeah.
But I do kind of like the simplicity here.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like you watch Get Out in the opening sequence where Dre is kidnapped is like you're immediately like, oh, this is like a very interesting, like well-made movie. Almost immediately how the camera like follows him walking down the street and the character because I mean this movie is it parodies, it's satires, it's commentary on like black characters in horror movies, it's satire on horror movies in general, subversions, expectations, the fact that the character sees something odd immediately with the car and is like nope, get the fuck out of here, like absolutely not, is all playing on like classic like horror movie tropes and stuff like that. But the reveal where he sees the car, hit my mic, goes like down the street and then it like the camera pans back in a slow pan to Wiki Stenfeld's character and then back to the car door with it open and you're just like that's effective because it's like a very effective way of telling horror and scare and like that build up just to the car door being open. You're like oh shit, you're like something's about to happen and then he's kidnapped and the movie kind of cuts to that, but immediately that opening sequence you're like this is gonna be a good movie. This already knows what type of genre it is, it knows how to establish like an effective build up, it knows how to build tension and then have that pay off. And then you're introduced to Daniel Kaluuya's character, who you said is like he's just like the best part of this movie probably in terms of like everything. He outclasses nearly every almost element of this movie with his like sheer like magnetic performance, which is excellent. It's just like you're known immediately, you're in good hands, and you feel that with Us, and you feel that with Nope too. We were like, this is a guy who knows how to make movies, build tension, and create like effective, like worthwhile movie moments, if that makes sense.
I think what helps Jordan Peele stand out among like horror movies was the writing here.
Yeah,
Even though like it's can be scary at times, he definitely relies on like his background as as a comedic writer.
yeah.
Um, like the conversations between Daniel Kaluuya's character and like the family, especially the dad,
Bradley
um,
Whitford, yeah, he's awesome.
are
Yeah,
so like awkward.
yeah,
They're like he balances like realistic conversation between a boyfriend and a fam and like the boyfriend's and the girlfriend's family with like like sort of like more like entertainment comedy
Yeah.
so well. Like it's like when the girlfriend's like he's gonna say that he'd vote for Obama or like for a third time, and he's
Yeah.
like, I would vote for Obama for a third time.
Yeah.
And then like once like the actual like family comes, like when they have the family party, like conversations get more weird and less believable.
Hmm.
But again, it's a good build.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed those opening sequences. They felt like suitably awkward, I would
Yeah.
say. And then when the brother comes and they have the dinner table, the dinner
Caleb Landry Jones, who I wish was in
who
more movies, in better movies.
he's a
He's so good.
yeah, he plays a creep really well, but it's like Tarantino-esque the way like it kind of reminded me of like the scene in Django where Leonardo DiCaprio is interrogating everyone and he
Yeah.
gets slowly like it's like the under the veneer of chivalry, and then
Yeah.
as the scene goes on he becomes more and more outwardly hostile,
Yeah.
but never, I mean, it gets really bad in Django, but like for a while he's balancing it pretty well where like you just feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Here it's he does it so well where it's like you just feel more uncomfortable with every time, and then when
Yeah.
he starts getting physical with him again,
Yeah.
it's nothing, it does cross the line, but only just barely crosses the line, so you could reasonably not want to like fight back.
Yeah,
It's really
exactly.
well done.
Because you have the whole Daniel Kaluuya character says he's like, hey, I have a rule, like no horsing around with like drunk guys,
Yeah,
like in your me, like, oh yeah, he's probably a little like it's that like offset, something's off. I mean, he immediately becomes like you look at him and you're like, you're a creepy fucking dude. Like he has
yeah,
that expression, and then he starts talking more like racial genetics and like
yeah.
genetic makeup, and you're like, oh, this is weird. You're like, it's now, and then he stands up and you're like, come on. Like, it's exactly one of those things. Like, it puts you so well into the mind of Daniel Kaluuya's character where you're just like, you become the audience. You're like, oh man, like, don't just like sit down. Like it puts you so well into these positions, or it, it's a very like empathetic movie because you can very much feel a lot of like there are sequences, we'll talk about the ending in the second, where you feel probably like as hopeless and as confused as the characters, and it's been a while since I've like, so I feel like tangibly like felt that emotions of the character watching the movie. Maybe it's because like I like normally when we watch these movies, I try to take notes on like a notepad, like I'm just like, oh, like things that stand out or a line that stands out. I made it up until my last note, I think, was like the sunken place scene. And then I just got so into the movie, I just didn't write down anything else.
Mm.
Like that first sunken place scene. And it's, I think this is one of those movies that we could go legitimately probably scene by scene and talk about something that is good or effective or interesting or something that is foreshadowing in probably every single scene. Um, do you have any moments that stand out, that like really stand out, or
Um, I do. So the first thing that really disturbed me was when when he's talking to the maid, when he's trying to figure out what's going on, and then she's like smiling but crying.
yeah,
I don't know the actress's name, but like the performance to give there was so unsettling.
yeah,
That was a scene that really stuck out to me on the rewatch. He just balances again. Yeah, we could talk like scene for scene, but it would basically just be saying like, oh, this is a good foreshadowing, this is a good
yeah.
build up, this is well acted. Like we could do that, but we're not going to. So like,
Betty Gabriel,
yeah,
Georgina.
he
Yeah,
gives a phenomenal performance here. Again, when it starts getting a little more like surreal, it does work for the movie. I would say my only like critique with this beginning part, or like the
yeah.
first two thirds, I guess, is that when he's hypnotized, he should be more offended. Like
What do you
people
mean?
should
What
act
do
more
you
weird
mean?
about it. Like he was hypnotized without consent.
Okay.
And like the daughter goes, "Oh, well, that's strange." And he's like, "Yeah, that is kind of strange." Like
Well, because
I'd be pissed.
he's not
I mean,
sure if it was he didn't think it was he thought it was a dream. He wasn't 100% certain it was real, because he then asked, I've had these weird dreams, and then it only was when he talks to the groundskeeper, Walter,
okay.
that he's
Yes.
like, yeah, you were sitting in her office for a long time, and that then starts the spiral where he's like, I have to get the fuck out of here. Like I have to
Okay.
leave. Like
Yeah.
that,
Okay. You're right.
yeah. It's really, I mean, like, this is what I'm talking about with like empathetic like character moments, is like he wakes up horrified, and because he goes into the sunken place, and you're just like, yeah, that'd be really fucking like, you don't like, you're immediately so absorbed into it. um I can understand that though, like
My
being
only
like,
pushback would be that because they specifically discussed getting like the addiction of cigarettes and hypnotizing, and then after he has the dreams, he's like, I can't touch cigarettes anymore without
yeah,
being disgusted. It's like I think like again nitpicking. Like
yeah,
I feel like I would connect the dots and I would be more suspicious
yeah,
than he
yeah,
is. But it's a small quibble in a movie that, considering like what these what this white family is hiding, it's fairly well balanced.
Yeah.
Where like you can reasonably believe that he would stay there up until like that moment where he leaves.
Yeah. I that was actually gonna, if we're gonna do any like nitpick, I would have been long gone. Like
Yeah.
I like as soon as I'm hypnotized, I'm like, I'm
As soon
gonna
as as soon as the brother tried to fight me, I would have been like, no, like
yeah, been like, you know
I'm
what,
good.
this isn't for me. Like, goodbye. I understand it's like a lot of like, well, this is ultimately something with like the character Rose, who's played by Allison Williams,
Yes.
is I honestly forgot how good she is in these movies, and like in
She
this
eats
movie.
one Lucky Charm at a time, and it is literally
It's a Fruit Loop, Matt.
oh, a
It's a
Fruit Loop.
Fruit Loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one Fruit Loop at a time. It is so infuriating.
Yeah, or or when she's sitting like after the reveal and she's sitting and Rod calls her and she's like, "No, he left to," and you that
Yes.
all the she's like it's one of those movies that like every rewatch something else like piques your attention, whether it's the like the two scenes that really like were effective to me is it's not very rare, but like the second place is like a legitimately incredible piece of like filmmaking.
Yeah.
The sound design, the score, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way you almost as an audience member become uncomfortable in your seats trying to imagine what that'd be like. The sequence at night when the guy's running, like running straight at him and then turns is every time I forget it's coming and every time it like legitimately is great. Um but the Allison Williams like really stands out, knowing what you know about her character in the reveal, all the buildup, all like the fake, like, oh, don't worry, like let's leave, all the support, everything becomes like you start picking it apart a little bit. And when she eventually has that reveal and she kind of shuts down and everything was revealed to be a like just an act. And then even at the end, she's eating the Fruit Loop one by one and Google like top NBA prospects. And it's just like going through the pros, you're like, whoa, like what the fuck? Like this is awesome. And it sucks she hasn't been in more movies because she like legitimately is excellent in this. And it's something that like a little thing that stands out each time for me.
What'd you think of Rod in this movie?
It's so it's interesting because I think if there's anything you could criticize, it'd probably be this aspect in this character, but it's parroting a lot of like the comedic relief side character, like the black comedic relief side character. That's a parody of it. And the fact that he is the ultimate savior of the movie is the ultimate like, hey, look, the comedic relief side character actually helps out in the end and stuff like that. And is the reason, and he's competent and he is aware, he's aware of the he's like, oh my God, sex slaves, like, wow, and you're like, huh, he's the weird voice of reason for the audience. And if you're going to find any probably point to critique, it'd probably be that. But honestly, like watching this movie, it felt really nice and to have these moments of levity. And I don't know if you know how what this movie was originally supposed to be ended as. Do you know anything about that?
No.
So I think if I'm correct on this, there were two different endings shot for this movie. The first one was the one we saw with Rod coming in at the end. The second one was the police sirens, and it's an actual police officer. And the final scene is Daniel Kaluuya's character. What's his name again? Chris, I think.
Yes, his name
Yeah.
is Chris.
Okay. Being in jail, like behind bars and arrested because I mean, he was killing like a white girl
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And there's a lot of like commentary on that. And they ended up getting rid of that ending in favor of the happier
Happier ending.
yeah, which honestly, considering the movie is this like satire, like kind of like a deconstruction of the genre, and that final sequence when Chris is like getting out of the house, the catharsis of him surviving at the end makes everything far more worth it. I think it was a much better choice.
Yeah, I think at some point it passes like it gets too fantastical towards the end where
You think?
if they ended it with like the gritty realism part,
Yeah.
it probably would have not worked as well. Like if it was like grounded to a certain extent and more disturbing
Yeah.
throughout the movie, I can understand, but it definitely passes that fantastical barrier at some point where it's like you do kind of want to see like the hero like
Yeah.
emerge, which is like a good testament to how well the protagonist is built up.
Yeah. You
But
legitimately
for
want him to like win. Like like I really
yeah,
think like we talk about this movie, we're going to talk about this movie being a modern classic like that. And I think that choice to make the ending something that entices people to go back and watch it again because you spend this hour and 40-minute runtime in this like as an audience member deeply aware that something's going on and you root for these characters because they're done so well. If all of a sudden it ends with this like cold like it's almost like if he were to be arrested at the end and it's like, oh look, it's a real cop, it's almost like this cold, like back to reality. That does, like, I wouldn't go back and rewatch the movie as many
Up
times as
there
I
goes
did.
gravity.
How could you do that? Okay. You threw off my train of thought, but I don't think I would have gone back and rewatched it as much. You Eminem stan.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think just like go back to Rod for a second. I would say I loved the whole TSA stuff where it's like I'm a TSA agent. Like
Yeah.
that stuff I thought was hilarious. Like the Jeffrey Dahmer stuff felt like it was like they hit record like now be funny for like 5 minutes. And then
Okay,
he's
I
just
get
like,
that.
oh, like what if he like cut off the heads and he's gay or whatever, like all this stuff. And it just felt like just improv. It felt like Ghostbusters 2016, where it was like, okay, we're gonna hit record now, just be funny for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But the TSA stuff felt like it actually like had something to do with his character.
Okay.
And like I liked it when he's trying to explain the situation to his boss, and he
Or
like
the
they just start
cops or
laughing
whatever.
and they
Yeah.
start bringing more people in to like listen to the story.
Yeah.
That stuff I really liked, and then yeah, he becomes the hero at the end. And I think the movie, like I just loved watching Chris be like just murder all the
Yeah.
family members at the end.
It's
It was
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah. There was also one thing that I caught on this rewatch is when Caleb Landry Jones's character, the brother, is like, the great thing about jujitsu. And I was like, fuck. He's
Yeah.
like, those are, as somebody who did jujitsu and stuff like that, that's 100% conversations. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm 5 moves ahead. But there's that great callback when
Tyler
he,
said that once, then tripped on flat ground.
yeah, and I tripped on flat ground and just got a concussion. Yeah, and then I've been out ever since. It's just I fall shit myself, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. But there's that scene where he's like, yeah, you're always like 2 to 3 moves ahead. It's like chess. And then there's a sequence at the end where Daniel Kaluuya keeps going for the door to trick him to stab the leg because he's 2 to 3 moves ahead.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
it's little things like that. Like it took me 5 watches to be like, oh, hey, that's cool. Like I finally connected the dots, and it's a movie that plays it off. Yeah, no, that catharsis at the end when he's killing the family.
I was like, it's unrealistic. He just jujitsu. That means he's gonna win.
Yeah, he should have won. He's untrained. Like he was bashed over the head twice or multiple times with a giant rock or whatever. So, but no, that catharsis of when he like takes him off the chair and you see the cut to his hand with grabbing the ball, and you're like, let's fuck it. It's like that immediate. I saw that in theaters, and every time he killed someone, cheers, like audible. People were like, like fucking like losing their mind, and I was in it. Like I was like, that's so cool, that's awesome.
And I liked that like when he like rams the father with the antlers. That was a great scene.
Yeah.
I think the worst scene of the movie was the photos.
The photos of
like when like right before right before they're about to leave, like he like goes to like the closet. He happens to open the closet, and like the photos are right there. He's like,
but let me argue this though. Let me argue this. When she's eating the Fruit Loops, all of them are behind her bed, which means they were there initially. So she just takes them down, puts them away real quick, and then puts them up when it's all done. And it seems like she's done that.
Yeah, but I feel like he would have found them earlier. Like
you think, yeah. And why was the door open?
Yeah, why was the door open? Like, aren't they trying to
be
at all secretive? Like they've done this like 30 times before. Like when they know not to leave the box literally right there.
Yeah, they also like. There's a lot of nitpicks. Like if the whole point of the movie is they kidnap Black people and then take over their bodies, they aren't very discreet about it. They're constantly at that party where they're like, find specimen, and they're like touching him, and you're like, dude, you look like you're trying to like kidnap him, like it's very. And I know a lot of it is playing on like the like older white people like don't understand how to like they're very like they're still like ingrained with a lot of these, like they grew up during like these kind of like more racist times and stuff like that, and they don't like it. I know it's a lot of like playing on it, but it's still like you can nitpick a lot of this movie, like any of it, and
it's just like that's like the photos were the only scene where I'm like right now, like okay, like you just happen like that was the only time where I was like where I felt like I was like taken out of the movie where I'm like you're supposed to be like good at this, and then you leave the photos right there. Then conveniently he finds them right before everything goes bad. But again, it's small.
My thinking was there's a few different things. My thinking was they are so confident at this point with their thing because they've done it so many times as evidenced by the photo. They don't really care. And plus they say as an explanation when Stephen Root's character at the end is like a big key is like the pre-op is understanding the procedure. And because at that point they had hypnotized him with the tea thing, they can make him like shut down. him understanding that this is something that is happening and they've done multiple times might help him understand the process because he comes to it quick. So it helps. So maybe it's a tactic. Maybe it's something they plan. I don't know. I'm definitely just trying to like look for things, and I can understand the nitpicks, but I also am sitting here like maybe there's justification for it. At this point, like 3 movies into Jordan Peele, who clearly is a very deliberate filmmaker, you would nitpick the shit out of Us, by the way. There's a couple of really big, like, what kind of moments in Us that really stand out that you can nitpick, but
I'm not
yeah,
a big nitpicker, just like when the movie's so like so good,
yeah,
you
concise
know.
and clear, yeah.
Yeah. It's like this is the one thing that stood out. Is there anything else you want to say about the movie before we
I got a ton of things. I could keep talking about
oh
this movie forever. Like the effective way in which they have the party and all the lead up, and like there is a I don't want to spoil Killers of the Flower Moon, and I won't, but there's a sequence in Killers of the Flower Moon where the movie does such a good job of building the more malicious, violent, evil nature of like these like old white men at the time, that like you look in their faces or you see a room of them and it just feels like evil. They feel malicious. They feel like creatures of like greed and violence and like bigotry. And you get a lot of that when they're at the party and you see this one's played more for like comedy and horror in like an unsettling way, where like Bradley Whitford's character is like, there's Chris. And after Chris had the weird interaction with Georgina, and like all like a group of them turn around and they're like,
yeah.
ah. And the scene where he goes upstairs and all of them stop talking, and they kind of just
Yeah.
wait and look, like more direct intent, but it does such a good job of building up this like things are wrong, things are not going well. And then you get the ultimate, like the score reveal where he wants to leave, and then they're auctioning, like it slow pans to the photo of Chris,
Yeah.
and you're like, what the fuck is this? It's so fascinating. And I don't think, like, when we talk about modern classics in a second and stuff like that, it's hard to like beat something like this. It's hard to beat anything like this. A movie that every scene you could be like, that's great. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's really, like, it has something in it. It has something great. Yeah. What about you? What do you think? Any like final thoughts you had on this?
Just that I think it's like on a rewatch, I can like pretty safely say it's like a quintessential horror movie of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Like it's like or the quintessential horror movie of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Like relative to like mainstream. Like I wouldn't show The Witch to like someone who's not into movies.
Yeah.
But like for like there's like a good movie that can appeal to both like snobby film people and like
Mhm.
mainstream audiences alike. Get
Yeah.
Out is where you go.
Yeah.
It's just that's just what it is.
This is a movie you could show, like you could sit down with people anywhere and just be like, hey, anyone wants to get out? And it's like you can have a really fun time with it. The sunken place sequences are great. Everything. I recently just bought this for this movie. I went to Best Buy because did you hear Best Buy's getting rid of all their physical media Q1 2024? You saw that?
No, I didn't see that.
They're gonna stop selling like Blu-rays and CDs and stuff like that, DVDs.
What are you
Quarter.
gonna do?
I don't know. I'm gonna kill myself. Like that's it. I'm just gonna jump off the Empire State Building or whatever. And aim for the CEO of Best Buy. Not actually, but just like, but I went there and I was like, I wonder if they have like a horror movie. Like I was kind of wanting to watch one because I've been streaming them and internet kind of sucks sometimes. So I bought Get Out. It was like $12 and it looks phenomenal. Like the movie
Hmm.
looks so fucking good. And this is something that like you're right. It's the quintessential horror movie. It's the when we think about the best horror movies of the 21st century, we're naturally one of the first 5 we're probably going to think of is Get Out. Probably going to be one of the first 3. When we think of like the best movies of the 21st century, we're probably going to think of this. This movie was nominated for 4 Oscars. Do you want to know what it was nominated for? 20.
Screenplay, I'm assuming.
It won for original screenplay. What were the other 3
Okay.
nominees?
Directing.
Yep, Jordan Peele.
Um, I don't think it got any actor noms.
It did. Daniel Kaluuya was nominated. Yeah,
Whoa,
Kaluuya was
good.
nominated for. I know, right? He's so fucking. And then he won for Judas and the Black Messiah, which he's awesome in.
Yeah.
He's so good.
It would also has Lakeith Stanfield in it.
Yep, which he's also really good in. What was the final one?
Production design, like costumes or something.
Picture, best picture.
Oh, I didn't know I got
Yeah.
best picture now. Okay.
It arguably. So I wonder, like, the 2018 Oscars, real quick. We should have probably prepped this in advance, but you know, this is how we go. Was this the year that? Oh my God, was that Guillermo del Toro fish movie the one that won 2017?
Oh my God, that awful movie. Shape of
Was it?
Water.
Yeah, Shape of Water.
Water doesn't have shape, you idiot.
Okay, let me ask you this then. It can have a shape. Is water wet, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, of course it is. If you touch it and you get wet, it's wet. Yeah, is
What does
this
it do
like
with anything?
okay, let me ask you this. So the winner of the best leading actor, these were the nominees. Gary Oldman won for Darkest Hour.
Ugh.
Timothy Chalamet for Calling by Your Name. Daniel Day-Lewis for Phantom Thread. Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out. Denzel Washington for Roman J. Israel Esquire.
I mean, that's Phantom Thread. I'm sorry, Daniel. I mean, Daniel
It's
Day-Lewis Phantom
it's
Thread
yeah, it's
is
Phantom
it's
Thread.
between him and Daniel Kaluuya,
Yeah,
but
Phantom Thread probably should have
kiss
won.
me till I'm sick.
It's
You
just
know, you
it's the
can't.
good. Yeah, you can't beat
Yeah.
it. Let's see. So it was also Best Picture, directing. Guillermo del Toro won for Shape of Water. Dunkirk,
Bull.
Christopher Nolan. Get Out,
Bull.
Jordan Peele.
Okay.
Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig.
Bull.
Have you seen that? That's a good
No,
movie.
I haven't seen it.
And then Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson.
Okay. I mean,
Probably
obviously between Jordan Peele and
yeah,
Paul Thomas Anderson.
And then it was let's see.
Dunkirk got a Best Director nomination.
Yeah, I know it's
Oh my
crazy, right?
God.
Um,
There's no hope.
Best Picture, Shape of Water won. Then you had Call Me
Bull.
by Your Name, Darkest Hour,
Okay.
Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
What is The Post?
It's a Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg
Oh,
newspaper
yeah,
movie.
Spielberg movie.
It's fine. I watched it. It's fine. I mean, this is the year Phantom Thread and Get Out are the two best movies of the year.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
it's
just
not
it is.
even a
It's not in
competition.
competition at this point.
Wait, did Wind River come out in 2018?
That was 20.
Wait, so 2017 movies for 2018,
Yeah,
right?
2017 was Wind River, but Wind River was not a critically acclaimed Oscar movie. Wind River
It wasn't
slapped
an Oscar movie, but it was critically acclaimed. People
It
loved
was,
it.
yeah. It was 2017. That was a good. That's a good
Oh
movie.
man, Taylor Sheridan get anything? Getting any nominations for that movie?
He's not. If he wasn't
They
nominated,
gave it a stupid, like all these stupid directors, like Christopher Nolan and Greta Gerwig, but they couldn't give Taylor Sheridan an Oscar nom.
Greta Gerwig is not a stupid director. You take that
Princess
back.
Is like such a bad movie. It completely doesn't understand. It's like, oh, isn't the pursuit of art so tough
which
when
movie?
you're a rich lady?
Which movie?
Frances Ah.
Frances Ha was not. No, she wasn't a rich lady. You get the fuck out. Are you shitting on Frances Ha? Fuck you. Frances Ha is one of my favorite movies.
Well, being a struggling artist is so nice when you have connections.
She doesn't have Hollywood directors. That's the point. It's the idea of finding yourself, individuality, becoming okay.
No, but
with
the
your
writers
journey.
did have connections. They don't understand the actual
Matt,
pursuit.
you're just like nepo babies. Die. You're like,
no, I'm fine with nepo babies, but just don't portray a superficial and dishonest portrayal.
I think you're wrong. I think you'd get a lot of shit for that. I think
no,
that
movie's crap. And anyone
bad.
who says no has never actually tried.
Matt, you're like, here I am peddling. I went to a Barnes and Noble yesterday, and we'll talk about the movie. And I was in there, and a guy was like, it's just like asking people. He's like, "You want to hear about my book?" And some people come bought it. Like, I respect it. All of the guys like, yeah, you hear about my book, and all was like, it's like an LA dude or whatever. And I was like, I don't want to hear from this guy.
I actually have nothing against Greta Gerwig. I'm more angry that Christopher Nolan got nominations for Dunkirk. But I'm assuming Lady Bird's been made like 5 times. Don't nominate a movie that's been remade 5 times.
Has it been remade 5 times? It's an original movie. No, it's
I'm thinking of Little Women.
That's 29. Oh my god. Yeah, Little Woman's really good though. Little Woman was nominated.
Lady Bird has Saoirse Ronan in it, right?
It's a legitimately good movie. It's very personal to Greta Gerwig and stuff. It's very apparent.
It's still a dishonest portrayal of the pursuit of art as a young person, but I will give her that maybe she deserved an Oscar nom for Lady Bird.
Okay, there you go. That's we found a good middle ground. All right, Matt, is Get Out a modern classic? Is this the easiest choice we've had?
It is modern. Yeah, it's the modern. It's
the modern.
It's like the easiest one you can possibly choose.
I mean, what was the other? Like Iron Man was probably the easiest
Iron Man
choice.
was the other really easy one.
But like this is like in terms of like a genuine act. Like I know Iron Man's like an actual movie, but like can we just like hold up for a second and just go like for in terms of like actual movies? I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that. Non-superhero movies that have staged and
we're both gonna we're gonna get everyone. We're gonna get all the dude bro
I'm gonna get
r/movie people angry at us.
My address is gonna get leaked. But in terms of like non-superhero movies that have clearly shaped and defined modern filmmaking and stuff like that, and movie-going experiences, and the stupidification of theater-going experiences. By the way, my Killers of the Flower Moon screening was really good, which was really nice. It was like full of a bunch of people who wanted to see a movie. But yeah, this is the most clear. Like, if we off our standards, it raised literally. Jordan Peele became a must-see filmmaker. Daniel Kaluuya is if he's in a movie, I'm gonna go see it. Like, it's more interesting. Allison Williams is great.
I
Like,
wanted to watch Judas and the Black Messiah solely because him and Lakeith Stanfield were in it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I watched Sorry to Bother You because of
Yeah, the movie
Lakeith
is
Stanfield. It's interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't
It
really have
like
a.
it has like a really good first half, and then
It's odd.
yeah, it just
And
kind of it becomes too much.
I have to rewatch it. I remember seeing it. I was like in my dorm in college, being like, I don't know what's going on here.
Lakeith Stanfield's in Harder They Fall too, right?
How do they fall? Oh yeah,
The Western with
he's
that
the
guy who's did a lot of inappropriate things allegedly.
allegedly, yeah, who's still in Loki, but I haven't seen season 2.
I said allegedly, yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't seen Loki. I haven't seen this new season yet, but I want to.
Yeah, I haven't given a shit. But yeah, no, I mean, this is the easiest. It's Get Out. It's a classic. Like, everything from like the I voted for Obama a third time. Like, if you say that, people will know what movie that's from. If you like, people know what Get Out is. General movie got it going. Audiences know what Get Out is. It's a staple of not just like horror filmmaking now, but like modern movie filmmaking. It's hard to argue that this isn't the best movie of 2017. If regardless of your opinions on Phantom Thread, it's hard to argue this isn't like a staple of what we look for in like good, effective, well-made original movies now. Told by a director who hopefully will continue to make effective movies forever. I want more of Jordan Peele movies, regardless of my thoughts on like Us and Nope and stuff like that. So, easiest one yet? Piece of cake?
I would say it's the easiest one yet.
Yeah. So we haven't. Okay.
Still not as good as First Reformed. First Reformed is still probably the best movie.
You think so?
That or Birdman. I think First Reformed is so good, but like, so just to clarify, like a movie that we say is a modern classic does not necessarily mean that we think it's better than movies we don't give a modern classic rating to.
Yeah.
Just for like people who are just listening to the first time, we're trying to dissect whether a movie will be remembered.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're saying like, oh, it's an A or something.
Yeah.
Like our subjective analysis does play a part in it, but we do try to look at like legacy and like try to predict whether it will be remembered.
Yeah, and this movie will be remembered. Like, it's a staple now, and it's going to be a staple when we look back at movies in 50 years. And we're just going to be like, yeah, Get Out was like the movie of the 21st century. And you know what? Couldn't have happened to a better one. I'm all for it. Like, it's great. Okay, Matt, what do we do? We actually don't know what we're doing next. We're gonna plan.
Yeah, we're gonna plan that out next time.
Yeah,
we're gonna plan that after this podcast.
After this podcast, we're gonna figure out what we're doing next. But Matt,
I think The Killers is coming out really soon, so maybe like a David Fincher movie we'll do next.
Yeah, it probably would be
Gone Girl.
Maybe that'd be something good with it. Yeah, we can figure that out. But let's tentatively think of that. Matt, what can we do?
Well, I mean, next is going to be The Irishman.
That's right. Yeah. By the time you guys are seeing this, we don't want to spoil The Irishman, but we recorded The Irishman earlier, and then
and then we're going to see Get Out next, but we're going to like rearrange them so this comes out before Halloween.
Yeah. So just pretend like you don't know what's going on. So, ooh, spooky. Okay, Matt, what can people do? Where can they find us?
Oh, leave ratings. We need reviews and ratings. 5 stars.
5 stars.
Leave a 5-star rating, but a bad review. Like say we're bad, but give us 5 stars.
Be like, these guys, I hate their opinions. They kind of suck, but 5 stars.
I one time wanted to make a movie, write a book, and then I never follow through with it. And then I relate to Francis Ha because I have absolutely no idea what it's like to be a struggling artist, because that's just how it is. And La La Land is also an accurate portrayal as well.
We're not shit on La La Land. La La Land will come back. We'll do a La La Land episode.
We're never doing La La Land. We already did La La Land for Film.
We already did La La Land. We'll have to do Whiplash or Babylon. We could do Babylon one day. Okay, Matt, this was fun. Get Out. We'll come back next with an even greater.
No, episode. Whiplash would be the best.
Whiplash would be a good one. Whiplash would be a really good one. Okay, Matt, this was fun. Thank you guys for watching. Like Matt said, find us anywhere. 5 stars, please. Okay. Thank you guys for watching. I'm terrible at any of these. I have no idea what to do. Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.